Oh, yeah, maybe we'll just take a breath, huh? This is the second new beginning today for some of us. I know Bodhi and Maria have been on the our previous call. So we're just going to take a breath and settle into this space. Say a big hello to Sinead as well, who's joined. Very, very welcome. And we're just going to drop in. We're just going to settle the energy of the group. Just let this energy sink down a little bit. We're bringing awareness to the breath. And a little saying that I really enjoy is that before we start, we're going to stop. And by stopping, I just want to get in the way of my own parts that, that think they've got to teach a course on forgiveness. I just I want to get in the way of the parts that come up that think they've got to do something, right? So I'm just taking a moment to stop and get in the way of that. Yeah. So we're taking a deep breath, and the invitation is for everyone here to just notice those little parts that think that, I've got to be a good student, I've got to show up, or I don't know what I'm doing here, or what's this all about? Why have I signed up for, and on and on and on. It's like I've got to do a good job of this, I've got to get this right. It's like whatever your personal flavor is, let's just notice that and acknowledge it. And we'll just let those little voices know that we get it. Yeah, I get it. I understand. And let's come to this space with an emptiness, if we can, with a spaciousness. Let's ask these parts just to relax back so we can have a spacious field here of potentiality without coming in with this idea that we need to know something or do something. So before we start, we're going to stop. And you might want to place a hand on your heart. You might want to place a hand on your belly. Just get supportive. You might want to apply a gentle pressure. Just let yourself know that you're safe. Let all of your little parts know that you're safe. They're safe. There's no expectation upon them. And that we're just here to explore and experiment together. Okay? And that's really the foundation of this course. We've got 8 weeks to explore and experiment. And the beauty with both of those things is that there's no getting it right and there's no getting it wrong. They're going to say that again. The beauty of this space and these ideas is that there's no getting it right and there's no getting it wrong. There's no getting this right and there's no getting it wrong. I'm going to take a deep breath into that. Allow that into the system, allow that to land. And we're just going to be here, just going to be here together and explore a little bit about, yeah, what we're what we're going to be doing. And there's a loose outline for today. We're going to be looking at obviously forgiveness, seeing as that's what we've signed up for. So we're going to have a little look at forgiveness. Um, and we're going to look at it conceptually. So we're going to look at it with the mind. We're going to look at it in terms of meaning and words and concepts. We're going to look at it from this level, okay? And we're going to play around with that a little bit. But the process of this course, and I think really the process of any teaching, and this is about teaching, is bringing it into the experiential plane. So that those concepts that start as words in mind, as thoughts, become something that can be felt in the system of the body and the emotion, as sensation, as feeling, quality. So that's the trajectory. Okay, that's where we're heading. We'll start in concept, we'll start with words, we'll move into breath, and we'll move with the breath into exploring the quality, and that means we'll move into practice. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We will practice forgiveness. We'll practice forgiveness and we'll practice that with ourself. This is all a bit new to me. I had a plan. I can't remember that quote. There's a great quote, isn't there, about making plans and God laughing or something like this. So I made I had a beautiful course set out for everyone. It was all very straightforward. And then there was a channeling last Sunday with Yeshua, in which he really brought through something different and new, for me to look at. And it was like, okay, this is the trajectory now of this course. So there's been some tweaks, and those tweaks are around this idea of bringing forgiveness very specifically in a targeted way, into the first three chakras. And we'll explore that later, and we'll talk about exactly why that is. I always think the why is really important because it gives the mind something to go, oh, yeah, I can get my teeth into that and I can get behind this because I've got the understanding of why we're doing this. And we'll really dive into that as well. And it's really exciting, actually, for me as a bit of a spiritual nerd, in terms of concept and idea. It's nice to kind of go, oh, yeah, that's really interesting, and kind of it brings a deeper understanding for me of not just forgiveness, but how forgiveness affects the very deep foundational understanding of what reality is and how we operate within reality. Um, and Jeshua says somewhere in The Way of the Heart, I think it's lesson 3, and I must pull that quote out. He says, that when you really start to get into forgiveness, you'll understand how how it's so fundamental to understanding creation itself. And that's really what we're going to be getting into. And it feels quite experimental because this is all just dropping in, and it's like, yeah, we're gonna play with this. And I've played with it a little bit in myself, but I don't know the full effect of this. I don't know if this works, right? I should have you all sign a disclaimer, really, saying no refunds for, if it doesn't work. Um, but I gotta, yeah. So we'll journey with it, and we're all guinea pigs here in the little the laboratory of forgiveness with our own systems of mind and body as that that space of experimentation, which is kind of fun. And I really like that. So yeah, I have a look at my notes. So yeah, as the course progresses, we're going to focus very much on the root chakra today. We're focusing on the root. We're focusing on the body. We're kind of going straight to the most difficult place, right? We're going right to the. And I've been the last few days. It's been like, maybe we should start with the solar plexus. And it's been like, nope. And it's like, oh, what about the sacral? It's like, nope. We're gonna go straight for the root. All right. So I hope everyone's strapped in tight and it's it's looking forward to a fun week of exploration. Um, and then next week we'll have a focus on the sacral. The week after we'll focus on the solar plexus. Then we're going to focus on forgiveness of God and creation itself. And then we're going to move into the last few weeks will be about bringing forgiveness to relationships, bringing forgiveness to those around us, parents, siblings, spouses, whoever is in our field. So that's going to be towards the end of the course. We'll look more into that. So yeah, this is very much about forgiveness in self and understanding what that is. All right. Yeah, just some general housekeeping. You have no obligation to keep your camera on. You can turn it off. I am recording this. Your faces will be on the recording. And other people who may see this in the future may see your face or hear you asking questions. If that's not okay with you, and I understand if it's not, let me know and I can blot you out. Okay, I can figure that out in my editing software. If you're happy to be seen, that's wonderful, and I really appreciate it. Um, yeah, if you have a question, just come in. It's a small group. We can keep it quite informal. We're not going to get like flooded with questions from all over the place. But if something's not landing for you, if you want clarification about something, that can be really, really supportive, not just for yourself, but for the group. So do chime in, and let yourself be heard. Um, yeah, I think that's everything in that domain. If anything else comes, I'll mention it. I want to check that everyone can hear me okay. That's really important. Yeah, good, 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 good. All right, perfect. Ah, right. So again, I'm going to say this a lot. Like before we start, let's stop. And I say it for myself because it's really easy, especially when I start getting excited about a subject, for me just to start unloading information, um, which can be okay, but at the same time, it's really good for me to be measured and conscious in that space. So I'll say it a lot before I start. Let's stop. So there's going to be quite a lot of information today, just to prepare your system for that. Um, I've got a note taker, which will do summaries of this call. And I've also got a transcription device as well. So I'll make a transcription. So there'll be a video recording, there'll be a transcription of all of this, and there will be a summary, hopefully by AI. I've not used that software before. We'll see if it's any good. Um, so whatever you don't absorb now, whatever doesn't kind of feel, it's okay, right? There's all of these different ways to re-engage with the subject matter. And I'm kind of very conscious of the fact that there's a lot of information here, and I don't want that to become like a heady thing, but it's also really, really important because we're going to be engaging with practices that have the potential to draw things up out of us. And I want all of us to be as resourced as possible with the information to be able to meet those things in compassion. All right, so that's where I want to be at. I want everyone to be able to hold as much space for themselves as possible in loving compassion as we move forward. So forgiveness, like it's like what is forgiveness? It's such a kind of slippery thing in many respects. Um, I looked it up in the dictionary, and it says that forgiveness is stopping the feeling of anger towards somebody. Stopping the feeling of anger and resentment towards somebody. And I thought, well, that's okay, but it kind of raises more questions than it answers. It's like, okay, well, great. But I don't know about anyone here, but stopping feelings is often quite difficult. And it's not necessarily what I think is a healthy approach to, or do we just suppress our feelings? Is that what we're meant to do here with forgiveness? Do we just deny it and put on this, what is this plastic smile for everyone and say, yes, I'm beyond anger, like I forgive you, whilst the blood is boiling inside, and there's images of like just murder. Like, yeah, everything's fine. So it's for me, it's an idea, and I think it takes a small step towards an understanding, but it doesn't answer what forgiveness truly is for me. So it's a good place to start, and and so I want to introduce that idea that there is this relationship between forgiveness and anger and resentment, and there is this movement towards not necessarily stopping that or blocking that, but maybe towards understanding that a little bit better. Maybe there's something we can do to understand that a little better. Um, and then we could come into this field of like, well, what is it that's actually underneath anger? What is it that feeds into this expression? Um, And I know in myself that when I'm angry with somebody, generally it's because they've done something wrong, right? Um, which may or may not be a reality, but we'll get to that later. So there's this notion, there's a notion that somebody's done something wrong or has done something to hurt me, has done something wrong against me, or has done something wrong against someone else. So there's seemingly something wrong that has happened, that has occurred, that requires some form of forgiveness in order to, I don't know, try to establish a sense of peace or try to create some kind of connection again or repair in the situation. So in this sense, forgiveness can be a very beautiful thing. But there still seems to be a lot lacking in this understanding from the world's perspective of what forgiveness is. Um, so it's really nice to kind of drop back in with Yeshua and look again at what his teachings were around forgiveness. And I want to introduce the Aramaic word Rosh Clan, which is a beautiful word that's in the Lord's Prayer that got translated from the Aramaic, which is this deeply mystical language, into Greek, which is not necessarily this deeply mystical language, much more kind of logical and reason based, a very different worldview. From there, it got translated into the Latin, um, the whole Roman influence, who had very specific ideas about the way in which these teachings needed to be conveyed. From there into the German, not necessarily renowned for its subtleties. And then from there into the English. So it's been on this long journey through these different languages, through many minds, through many scholars, through many worldviews, through many potentialities, and we get left with forgiveness. But what did Yeshua really mean? What was Yeshua talking about? And I love the work of Neil Douglas Klotz, who's an Aramaic scholar and has done a lot of work with the Lord's Prayer and the Beatitudes for many, many, many years. And it's really the ground and the roots of that Aramaic understanding that is taught in the Way of Mastery by JM as well. And in his terms, the Washwell clan means more something like embracing into stillness, or like the return to wholeness, the return to original wholeness. So all of a sudden we've got a very different quality of energy. And this is really important when we start looking at forgiveness. I think it's really important when we're talking about any form of spiritual teaching at all. It's what's the felt quality? Like what is the what Jeshua would call content? Right? We have the form of the words, but what's the content underneath? And when I start talking about Washbowl Clan, I start feeling the frequency of that. And when I start dropping into these ideas of returning to original wholeness, and when I start feeling what embracing in stillness is, it's like there's a whole new quality of energy in my system. There's a softness that emerges. There's a deepening that happens in my system when I start thinking about and talking about these notions. This starts moving us towards what forgiveness truly is. Because forgiveness is not a concept in mind, and the concept actually is very difficult to pinpoint because it's a felt quality of energy. And if we think of embracing something in stillness, it's like, what does that, like, how does the mind get hold of that? But if I close my eyes and I drop an intention into my system and I ask my soul and myself in love and I say, I want to embrace this quality of energy here in stillness. I want to enfold it and embrace it back into original wholeness. Something different happens. So I want to retranslate for all of us through this course this idea of forgiveness as something that we do. And I want to kind of just push that to the side a little bit and introduce this idea that forgiveness is something that we feel. And it's that quality of feeling, which is an energetic vibration. It's a quality of experience. And when we bring that quality of experience to the world and to the world mind, it has a transformative effect. And we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of that in a minute. But this is for me, this is a very, very key principle when we're talking about forgiveness, is this transition from the idea that, there's a mental conceptual doing involved, which to begin with, there absolutely is, but the world kind of tries to contain everything in that bandwidth of the cognitive, logical, cerebral, and dropping that down into the emotional, physical, sensational quality of felt energy where we can say, oh, yes. And then forgiveness isn't something that I'm thinking about, it's something that I am being. And then there's an embodied quality and I would love us to get to a place in which we can experience an embodied quality of forgiveness and express that effortlessly somewhere. And I this completely drives me mad. I have searched for this line over and over and over again in the Way of Mastery. I can't find it anywhere, right? But I know it's there, or I've certainly heard it from Yeshua, but I think it's in the Way of Mastery. He says that when forgiveness is practiced enough, it's possible to become a walking wave of forgiveness in creation. So that it's not something that we specifically do. It's something we become, and in that becoming is the undoing of actually of the world itself. So the forgiveness is a very natural expression of Christ. And I love another line that he says, which is like, I forgive you, not because you've done anything wrong, but because it feels good. Right? And it really does. I mean, it really, really does. It's such a beautiful, soft, gentle, powerful, balanced, wonderful expression of light energy that is deeply known in the essence of each of us. Um, and has an incredible impact in the world. So yeah, this is the defining terms, if you like. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to define what I mean when I say forgiveness, so that we can begin to retrain mind to understand that forgiveness isn't just this mental construct of words that are offered, but rather it's this felt quality that is way, way, way deeper than that, and has a quality of true joy and love within it. Any questions on that before we move on? No? Okay, good. So we're going to move on to, yeah, a deeper, a slightly deeper understanding of the nature of the effect of judgment in the world and forgiveness. There's this profound connection. Um, in many places, Yeshua talks about forgiveness being that energy that dissolves judgment. And judgment is so fundamental to the whole dream of separation. It really is. In the channeling last week, which is inspiring a lot of discourse at the moment, um, there was an image presented of, you know, all of us as souls, billions of souls coming together in the commitment to one thought, in the commitment to journey into separation by conjuring a thought, and a part of that thinking, a part of that unified thinking, it wasn't just that we want to create separation. The thought was that we have hurt God, that there's this tearing in the fabric of creation. It's what I refer to as a tearing in the womb of the mother. And it's a horrific image that we all agreed to perceive. And from that perception, there came a profound judgment. And that judgment sits at the very root, we'll be going there later, at the very root of every being. And as a result of that judgment comes the dream of separation. It's like Joshua says that guilt is the mother of fear, right? It's like guilt is the mother of fear. Without guilt, there would be no perception that there is a threat of retribution. There would be no requirement for punishment. The more we delve into this as well, you'll see these stories playing out through the Christian religion, through the Islamic traditions, these ideas of original sin, right? This is what we're looking at here, is this notion of original sin. This is how it's been interpreted. And the guilt gives rise to that fear of punishment, which gives rise to the billions of illusions and strategies of mind through billions of parts to try to stay ahead of that threat, right? So I'm going to hide from God, right? That's going to work. I think that that's my strategy as a soul. I'm going to hide from God. It's like, or maybe if I just really punish myself enough, then when I get back there, God will say, "Oh yeah, you've been punished enough, haven't you? You've hurt enough on your journey like this." Or some will be like, "Oh fuck God, I'm gonna fight against this." It's like there's all these different ways and means, and we generally have all of them playing out in some way. And we'll get onto that a little bit later as well, probably today, but we'll see. So we have this creation of guilt, we have this expectation of punishment, we have this idea of retribution, and what comes prior to guilt, the father of guilt, is judgment. You cannot you cannot generate guilt without judgment. You can try, but it's not functional. For there to be a sense of guilt and for that to condense into shame, which is another story, there has to be judgment. And these judgments just spiral and spiral and spiral through mind. Um, and generally speaking, there's a core judgment, and this is what I'm just learning with Gesture at the moment. There's a core judgment for each individual soul held within the center of each chakra. And that this is a separation, therefore we have this field of divine mind running under here. And if you could imagine that this field of divine mind, they call it the fabric of space-time. It's this very deep quantum layer from which everything emerges. And our chakras move, and they actually bring information from divine mind through, these are energy portals into the physical, emotional, mental realms. But when there's a judgment, profound judgmental belief about self or the world embedded in the core of that chakra, that then creates this separation. That we're locked into this field of creativity and experience without access to divine mind anymore. So there's a lofty aim for this course, which is to re-establish self through the power of forgiveness in the chakras by healing our judgments with divine mind. So that's the experiment. Okay, that's what we're playing with here. And we're gonna see how that goes. And I certainly want to take steps towards it. I want to say as well, like this is a part of a whole picture. Right, this is a part of a broader picture as well, in which we can include therapeutic processes, in which we can include somatic, body-based experiences and therapies, in which we can include breath work. So there's all of this, everything has to come together in some way to fulfill and complete the journey. But what we're looking at very specifically at the moment is forgiveness and judgment. Okay, so that's the very lofty aim, and we'll see how we get on with that. All right. Any questions? Any questions at this point in time? All right, so this is a lot of information right here. Okay, it's a lot of information, and we've got 8 weeks. We've got plenty of time, and I'll be going over this again. We'll be talking about this more. We've got our Facebook group as well, so we can ask questions in there. We can share our experiences together. We can support each other through the practice and the journey. Um, so yeah, we've covered this idea of redefining what forgiveness is. We've looked at judgment and judgment's role within the creation of the experience that we had and how it underpins everything. Forgiveness is this movement of light as a felt quality that has the potential to dissolve judgment. Now, this is why Jeshua was so big on forgiveness when he taught 2000 years ago. It was such a profoundly central tenet of his teachings, and yet it got misunderstood and mistranslated into something else, as we've seen. But this movement to dissolve judgment is very profound because judgment has the effect of creating separation. So I'd like you all to play a little game here. I want you all to judge me, right? Like just create a judgment, whatever it is, like just something, right? Just feel the energy that you have at the moment, create a judgment and project it onto me. All right, and just feel what happens in your system. Just feel what happens in your system, and I'll feel what happens in my system. And if you can't find a judgment on me, I could probably supply one, but think of something else. Think of something else that you want to judge or something, something that annoys you, someone who annoys you. It's probably someone. Just notice what happens in your system of energy. Notice the subtle changes, the difference, the quality of connection that you feel. Because this is really at the heart of the power of judgment. Judgment destroys connection. It slices through. It's like a blunt knife that slices through the fabric of creation and it stops the flow of energy from moving. In many respects, it defines space, it defines form. So when we're fully healed from judgment, we might find that we have no use for the body anymore because we do not require that symbol of separation any longer. We don't need to maintain a boundary in that way because we've got nothing to hide. We've got nothing to contain. Or we can become purely transparent. Because what would we have to hide if it wasn't something that we ourselves are judging? Okay. So there's these really interesting loops, and we'll start looking a little bit more at this as well in the next section of this call, because there are these really interesting loops in mind around the way that we use judgment to suppress and deny things within ourselves that we then feel we need to protect. And one of the ways that we protect ourselves from the effect of our own judgment is to judge. All right, so we might judge someone else to keep them away. We might judge something. We might judge a teaching. We might judge a politician. We might judge something. Generally, we're looking to establish a sense of safety. Now, this is where it gets really, really tricky. And this is this is where the mind starts going like, oh no, what have we done? Right? Because we've completely enmeshed ourselves in these webs, these complex webs of judgment. And there are going to be different parts of our system that feel completely dependent on judgment for a sense of safety in a world that feels completely unsafe because of the depth of judgment that abides within mind. So this is like a catch 22, right? This is a rock and a hard place, and this is the genius of ourselves as creators, right? This is the pure genius of being confronted with the impossibility of generating separation from God as an experience. It's like if you are infinitely connected to something, how do you create a dynamic of energy in which you can explore not being connected to that thing? And you need to create a double bind. And this is the best double bind in the book. This double bind of like, I am going to judge the hell out of this, right? Okay. And then I'm going to be absolutely terrified of anyone seeing this because it's just so awful, isn't it? And wrong. And I'm just so awful and wrong. Therefore, I've got to hide this from everyone and everything. And one of the best ways of doing that is I just have to judge everything else to keep it away so that I'm not exposed, right? So then, and then that becomes something awful and wrong as well. So we end up isolating ourselves. And I don't know if anyone else is here is a professional at isolation. I'm very, very adept at isolation. It's, it's, it's my strategy for keeping myself safe from the wrath of God, who hates me, by the way. So I isolate and keep everything away and manage my judgments very carefully in order to justify that sense of isolation. And we all have our own strategies for this. So yeah, God, what a thing we've done with the power of judgment in order to sustain and generate an experience of separation from God. It's pure mastery. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's extraordinary the power of our creativity and what we have accomplished with that. Okay, so that's probably the end of that section. Is there any questions about any of this so far? Any reflections? Anything need clarifying? No. Okay. So we're going to go into this is the last phase of the teaching part, okay? Just you're doing really well to stay engaged. Um, so we've spoken a little bit, or I've spoken a little bit, I apologize. I've spoken a little bit about the way in which different parts become attached to judgment as a means of securing safety, as a means of continuing to feel safe in a system that is filled with judgment. So when I'm talking about parts, let's really pick this apart and work with this. So there's a system of therapy that emerged in the 1970s out of family systems therapy called internal family systems. And internal family systems has kind of been plodding along in the background for 30 years with Richard Swartz and a small team of dedicated therapists who are just incredible. And then over the last 5 years, it's just exploded. It's like, it's one of these beautiful things where you can recognize that the collective consciousness was just not quite ready for something. But Dick Schwartz had a mission and he knew he was onto something and he's just persevered. And then this thing has just exploded into the collective consciousness in the most amazing way. And the reason that it's exploded is because it very specifically, beautifully, and accurately gives a model that we can use to view our own psyche. And the foundation of it is to go from this mono mind idea of I am one mind and I am an ego. My ego is kind of my mind, and that's all a bit confusing, and I don't really know what it means, but there it is. And, I have these behaviors, and that's me too, and I'm just one thing here, and it's very, very confusing. And what Dick Schwartz has evolved through working with family systems is this idea that actually, you know, there's this multiplicity, this kind of vast multiplicity happening in the system, that we're not just one thing. And there are individual parts um, that have been forged into being through often very difficult events in life, and they get stuck in their experience and they get stuck in their strategies for managing that. And there are different parts that have different roles. And I'm not going to go into that too deeply today because I think we've got enough information on the go, but we will go more deeply into that over the coming weeks because it's very important. Um, and these parts can sometimes become very attached to their strategies, and often their strategies will evolve around judging self, judging other parts, or judging other people, or judging God, or judging the spiritual self, judging the soul. So judgment is very much a part of their domain. Um, and they might not be very happy about a mind that wants to start forgiving and getting rid of judgments. Okay, so I'm really just flagging this up at the moment because we're going to be going into the practice. Um, and it may be that the practice, at times in your experience, may be met with some resistance within your system. And all I want to do is bring awareness to the idea that that's perfectly natural. It's normal. It's completely understandable because all of these parts are trying to protect the system as a whole and their own little spheres of experience from becoming overwhelmed or re-experiencing the trauma and the pain that's been there before. And we'll go into that more at a later date. But I want to bring this idea that we're not here to impose forgiveness, right? That's kind of the opposite of what true forgiveness is. We're here to allow this movement of forgiveness. And if there is resistance, we can be on the side of it. We don't have to fight against it. We can be like, yeah, I get it. It's okay. I understand. I completely understand you wouldn't want to let go of this judgment. It makes perfect sense. It's kept you safe in your perspective for the past 20 lifetimes. Like, absolutely, you can hold on to it. And maybe there's another way. Maybe we could look at it in another way. But that's the encouragement. This is where I want to invite us into being with this. Okay. Hmm. All right. That was a lot. I know. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break. And after the break, we're just going to come back for another 20, 25 minutes, something like this. And we're going to drop into the practice. Okay. And the invitation is going to be that this practice is something that we take through the week, that we, in a kind and gentle way commit to if we want to, and see where it brings us to. So we're going to meet back here at 1/2 past. Okay. So any questions before we go? No. We're coming back to the meeting now. I just take a few breaths and a few moments for people to rejoin. And we're going to spend time in breath and meditation and feeling quality and really getting into the practice of forgiveness, joining with Yeshua, joining with the lineage, and yeah, bringing this into a quality of feeling. So welcome back, everyone. And, hi, Tom. Hmm. So yeah, we've really kind of explored there the concepts of forgiveness in terms of it, judgment, a little bit of mind. We're going to get into yeah, the practice. And the practice is going to be a joining of several things. Um, I remember Yeshua talking to me about alchemy once and what alchemy is. I mean, alchemy is the transformation of energy. It's the transformation of the forms that energy take into new forms. Um, and he said that for alchemy to work, you have to bring together at least three qualities into a holy instant. And he gave me a list of like seven qualities, I think, and I don't have them to hand. One of them was breath. One of them was sustained, focused awareness. Um, Another one was intention. Another one is the pure light of spirit. So when we can bring these things together, we can create a quality of alchemy. And forgiveness is very much a quality of alchemy. And so in this practice, we're going to bring breath, we're going to bring intention, we're going to bring the support of touch, and we're going to bring the light of spirit. And by doing so, um, we'll create the opportunity or the potential for alchemy to occur in the system of our own mind, which is simply an energetic expression of the divine in an individuated form. So we're going to take some breath and relax first. This is the first thing. And we're going to let go of all of these ideas and all of these words. You're just going to drop into being present. So we're bringing breath and relaxation together right now. So these are two qualities of alchemy. These are two qualities of transformation. And we're going to bring our intention of forgiveness through words, and I'm going to pull them up on the screen for us to look at. You don't have to look at them. I will speak them and you can follow along for now, but you'll have a copy of the words for the week so that you can practice with them, you can play with them, you can experiment with them, you can change them, you can do whatever you want with them to make them yours and feel right for you in your system of mind. But right now, we're going to hold a simple intention to cultivate the felt quality of forgiveness in this system. The open mind to allow this energy that dissolves judgment. We're going to focus our awareness on the root of the body. You could focus your awareness on the perineum or the area just beneath the perineum, or the genitals, or the anus, whatever feels right for you. It can be outside of the body, beneath these physical places. It can be inside the body. And I invite you to place one hand on your heart. And if you want to place one hand on the lower belly, or you could place one hand on the root, it's completely up to you. Whatever you feel comfortable with in this space is perfect and right. And we're going to breathe deeply into the root. We're going to call upon Yeshua and Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene to be with us, to join with us in this process, this intention for forgiveness. And as we focus our awareness deeply in the root, I'm going to bring the words, I forgive the judgments, placed within this root. I forgive the judgments placed within this root. Letting the breath come, letting the focus of awareness be present. Letting the intention to be clear. I forgive the judgments placed within this root. I forgive. I forgive. I forgive. I dissolve these judgments in light. I dissolve these judgments in light. I dissolve these judgments in light. I bring light to the place where this judgment was. We're bringing together these qualities of energy, the light of spirit, touch, breath, focused awareness, the intention of forgiveness. I bring light to the places where judgment lived. And you can play with this practice, with these words. I forgive, I forgive, I forgive. I know myself in innocent. I know myself in innocent. Just letting these words convey the energy of light, forgiveness into the root. Just being very aware of what the experience is. Forgiving any peripheral judgments that arise in mind. Generating a field of forgiveness as a felt quality in the root of the being through intention and purpose, through practice and experimentation. In the absence of judgment, very naturally there is the emergence of love. I forgive the judgments placed within this root. I forgive the judgments placed within this body, within the physicality. And you can become very creative with this week. The root is the physical. We're expressing forgiveness for the judgments that have been placed into the physicality of the form. It may be that you want to bring forgiveness to the judgments that are placed in the bones, the muscles, the viscera, the fascia. Maybe there's a specific place in the body that you would like to bring this quality of forgiveness. For the physical. And this week of forgiveness is dedicated to the root, to the physical. Just allowing whatever arises to arise. It's a process of breath and alchemy. I forgive the judgments placed within this root. I forgive the judgments placed within this body. I forgive. I forgive. I become forgiveness. I dissolve judgment in light. I dissolve judgment in light. bring light to the place where judgment was. Who am I when I am free from judgment? What do I become? I bring light to the places where judgment once lived, in this root, in this physicality. I know myself in innocence. You're going to take some deep, deep breath into the root. Practicing forgiveness is the restoration of innocence in mind and body and creation. The invitation is to practice this every day, at least once, to join in the breath, the intention, the focused awareness, to empower and enact the decision to forgive, to release yourself from the contortion of judgment in the root. Make a practice of it. Give it time and space, energy. And give opportunity for alchemy. To bring care to this, to nurture the quality of forgiveness in your mind. Now we're coming towards the end of our practice for today. You can, if you wish, set an intention to maintain a quality of forgiveness in the system, in the root. This is our beginning. Take a few minutes for any reflection or sharing about the process before we sign off for today. Bodhi,
Thank you, Israel. Um, I've had spontaneous sensations in the root, but today was really powerful. This session is extremely powerful. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bodhi. Thanks for sharing. And I mirror that in my experience too. Meredith.
Thank you, Israel, and everyone in the group. I wanted to share when you began, you said that we were kind of starting at a more difficult area. And I find that to be very true because that is the root, and that area is where I've carried a lot of judgment, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of judgments for self and others. So yeah, I can definitely see that this was a deep dive into a very difficult or I don't know if difficult is the word, but where they're
Challenging, maybe.
challenging. Yes, the very
Mm,
challenging place. So that's my share. Thank you.
thank you, Meredith. I appreciate that. And I just want to say as well that if there is stuff coming up that feels very challenging, then that we have a Facebook group that's closed and private, confidential. And if you want support, you can reach out there, or you can private message me as well, just to say. Because it's where the deepest roots of our separation exist. It is the place of the deepest trauma. And so the place we need to bring forgiveness the most, which I think is why we've started there. And we may stay here for more than a week. See, but thank you for that share, Meredith. Mari.
I want to express something very deep. Um, this is, a space where I chose to fully dissolve things. I started the process a while ago, but during I had a very oh, oh gosh. Intuitively, I had a strong transformation, and after that strong transformation that I had of awakening, I could feel when I breathe, I could feel every single cell of my body from head to toe. And I could feel in my root chakra where I have my genitals and I have my uterus that I know that they were in pain. I've been lately for quite some time, I had some trauma in the root chakra, and I released a lot of that, but I knew when I finished this session in the United States, that part of the body, I could feel that there was tenderness within. It's like my consciousness was touching from within the body, the organs, that they were tender,
Mm.
tender, the uterus, the genitals, everything there. And I experienced physical pain that it was even going up to my leg. And Jesus, my guidance, and he was telling me to breathe with that chakra, and it's quite illuminating. And that when you started the session and you mentioned the breathing, the intention is what the guidance that I received. But it's wonderful that I can do this in a group where the forces join and where there is a synergy here. I feel my body at the moment vibrating. When I've done the work, tears came up. I have a lot of judgments that I placed energetically, and I've been conscious after I came back from the US that when there is a thought of worry, worry particularly, the energy of worry, it goes on my genitals.
Mm.
Everyone is different, but me, it was like, okay, I worry about something, I could feel the pain in the genital. And the worry is judgment. It's all the time worrying about something, and really, okay, to let go and say, okay, no, I'm fine. I'm not going to be in that judgment, in that space. When I did this work, you know, I could feel the energy, and I could feel even the energy going on to my right leg up to the sole of my right foot, getting warm, very, very warm. And 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 I know in my heart that there was this guidance of like, just let go. It just let go and let it be, and release that.
Mm.
So just wanted to share that with everyone,
Mm.
because we're all healing together in this energy. Thank you so much for this space, and for holding this beautiful session, Israel and everyone.
Mm. Thank you, Mariana. Really appreciate your share. I think that it's a very shared phenomenon to have a lot of energy held in the genitals, projected onto them. it's a place where there's extreme sensitivity, and it's often the site of a lot of brutality. And those two things combined create often very, very difficult experiences. And I'm very grateful that you shared, you know, just what can land there and how much gets placed in this space. Yeah, it's very curious to me that we've gone straight to the genitals, we've gone straight to the root in our first session, but it felt very right to do that. And what I would say is that often there's a numbness that gets held as we close down to the energy. And in somatic healing, often what comes after numbness is pain. And it's very easy to imagine, oh my God, there's pain, something's wrong. But often that's a transitional place when we're focused on healing and energy towards more sensation and light, because you have to move out of the numbness. The numbness was there to stop the pain from being felt. And so there's this movement, this transition, the way through. So I really understand that experience of pain opening up. And I would very much say that that can be trusted in this movement of healing and forgiveness. Thank you. Sinead.
I'm just feeling really tender, and I feel as if there's an opening of Pandora's box of things that I've never felt or have been afraid of feeling. And the last month or so, I've had pains in my bones and stiffness and lower back pain, and I've been stretching and everything, but pain that I'd never experienced before. And I think, I feel it's all been leading up to this opening, to this allowing. And I've been listening to the channeling from last week every day, and Jeshua says that we've all played the game, and every time I come to that line where he talks about us, it's all been a game. I'm so tired of the game. I'm so tired of it. And I don't want to play that game anymore. That game of touch, I don't want to play it. I'm not going to play it. And so there's more commitment, I suppose, to actually do whatever it takes. And so whatever needs to be released, I'm in hook, line, and sinker, whatever it takes, whatever it takes. And so there's just a real sense of vulnerability. And I just feel as if I really need to be gentle with myself. And hold a gentle space for myself while I feel all of this. And this is only the beginning.
Yes, this is the beginning. It's a beautiful expression in your tenderness to want to hold that space of gentleness and compassion. I think that's absolutely key. I think there's a line in the Way of Mastery. It's probably my favorite line. I think it's the most important line Yeshua speaks. And he says, you cannot transcend that which you have yet first failed to embrace. It's what sets the Way of Mastery just over to the side of the Course in Miracles. It's what brings us into that feeling quality of truly embracing, of holding. Because the game is a game of survival that was never necessary because we're infinite and eternal. And yet there are aspects of mind that absolutely cling on to the notion of survival as being essential. And we can't just rip life away from those parts. It's not possible or right. We have to embrace them into the eternal so that they recognize they don't need to cling on to judgment, pain or suffering or any strategy of survival, whatever it is. And that's the journey. It's one of love, not one of rejection or abandonment. It's one of truly embracing. That's what forgiveness is. When we dissolve the judgment, we can embrace the part. Cannot embrace whilst judgment remains. And so we begin forgiveness.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a beautiful share, Sinead. Thank you. All of the shares actually, with just the depth of this, as you said, tenderness. I just feel the quality of energy that we've dropped into. I feel like we've touched upon forgiveness. I feel like in the practice there was a quality of light that was sublime. I feel like it's a really good start. So thank you. Ah, I'll be sending an email tonight with the video recording and a transcription and a summary. And it may be nice. I think I probably will over the next few days go back to the portion of the recording on the video where the practice started. It's around about an hour in, and follow that practice again and be with that practice again and bring focus to the root and to the body, to the alchemy of forgiveness, and to the dissolution of the illusion of separateness. All right. If you haven't received an email by the morning, look in your junk folder because sometimes the MailChimp goes there. Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Yes. Wow. Thank you very much.